early, many mornings, Rod and I get out to take longer or shorter walks. Sometimes an hour, sometimes 40 minutes. When we have the time, we like to walk up to Woodward Park and get up onto those hills so that we can see far and see the mountains and breathe in the fresh air and listen to the birds. When we have less time, we stay in nearby neighborhoods. During the recent election cycle, it took a lot of discipline to not become frustrated upon seeing sign after sign featuring people running for office whose policies did not seem to align with my values. It was a jarring feeling to see these brash, large signs bearing a name, intruding on the beauty of the surroundings around them. Lush grasses, neatly trimmed trees and bushes, and this wide array of spring flowers. While I don't want to, nor can I make judgments about those living behind the doors of houses owned by people whom I may not agree with, but the thought did come to me. God makes the sun rise on bad and good alike. No judgment there. God's rain falls on the just and the unjust. How difficult is it for us to maintain this kind of attitude? I can't speak for you, but I can tell you it's a constant challenge for me. Our most difficult assignments are usually not the ones that happen publicly, like the initiatives we participate in on the street, the endless petitions we sign, and the positions we endorse. No, these are the kinds of things Jesus talks about earlier in Matthew 6, where he writes, and we considered this last week, don't practice your religion in front of people to draw attention. Now, that doesn't mean what happens in the public sphere is suspect. It's just that if the motivation is to be seen and admired, that's where the problem lies. Our most difficult assignments are those that happen privately. Our text speaks of the secret place where God meets us. Love your enemies. Pray for your persecutors. Another translation says, those who harass you. I want to challenge you. Identify one person that you think about frequently and whom you have absolutely no warm feelings towards. You don't even have feelings of tolerance towards that person. Now, it could even be members of your own family, people in our community, or people that we work with. Or they could be complete strangers that we've read or heard about. Or they may be people we know nothing about whatsoever. These are the people who we feel directly or indirectly threaten our sense of peace, security, our decorum, our understanding of right and wrong, or who in some way oppose the very people we think we are. Those who conduct their lives differently, and we find that abhorrent. Can you think of anybody? Don't say names out loud, please. Now imagine being a person and consider Jesus' directive, pray for this person. Do you recoil? Can you feel the anger rise up within you? Do you throw up your hands and say, I have no idea how to do that, and I don't even think I want to? Well, you are not alone. If we see no way to change our actions, our attitudes, or our words, the only thing left to do is to resist. We come to a place of, I can't, so I won't. How do we come to grips with these difficult assignments? How do we grapple them without guilt? Be assured Jesus did not give guidance to his followers in order to make them feel guilty, hopeless, or unable to follow. That's not the point. Consider this one more time. God makes the sun rise on the good and and the bad alike. God's rain falls on the just and on the unjust. This means that the good things we enjoy is simply because we are human and we are in proximity to a good and generous God. We all have the same opportunities to enjoy a good rainfall and the warmth of the sun. We did not earn either. And those we feel are abhorrent or not worthy of compassion experience that same rainfall and enjoy that same warm sunshine. Franciscan Father Richard Rohr goes one step further and he says, all is included and nothing wasted or hated. This, of course, describes the endless love and inclusion and acceptance which God shows towards humanity and towards all of creation. Nothing is wasted or hated. What a concept. But how do we get there? Most of the time, I am so far from that sense of peace with the world around me. Well, to be honest, it's the humans I have trouble with. How do we get to this place where we can say all is included and nothing is wasted or hated? There is no formula. There is no 12-step program that will get you there and guarantee success. But there is a universal process that opens the door for change. Unfortunately, many religious communities will repeat Jesus' words, such as love your neighbor, pray for those who harass you, but they never follow up with how do we actually get there? It's not easy, nor is it automatic for Jesus' followers to be able to live like that. As routinely as the rain falls on the just and the unjust, exactly that frequently, hatred wells up within us when we feel attacked, experience injustice or harassment, or observe what we consider abhorrent behavior. This opens the door for guilt and shame because we know we're not measuring up, which is the exact opposite of what the abundant life Jesus speaks of should be. So let's look at where we find ourselves. Our first invitation is to become aware, to let down our defenses, to entertain the possibility that there could be a different way. There are elements of our modern life that militate against making positive changes in behavior or perspective. We hear many conflicting voices, but very few of them encourage forgiveness and love. We fill each moment of our day with sound, with videos, activities, social media, or interactions with people. We're constantly on the run. There is no time to reflect and become honest about who we are and who we are becoming. The demands of work, relationships, school, sports, meetings are incessant. Sometimes they're overwhelming. We always feel the need to measure up, to be something more than ourselves. Last week, Derek spoke about learning to be who we are. As a result of all of this, our nervous systems are on high alert most of the time. What do I mean by that? Another way to describe it is hypervigilance. Constantly alert to something that could be dangerous. Constantly being on guard or nervous or worried. Waiting for potential threats. Our bodies and minds are created for an ebb and a flow, not for constant hypervigilance or adrenaline rushes, uninterrupted noise, experiencing something more exciting this week than last week, and definitely more exciting than last year. That kind of reality is part of the world system which Derek also referenced last Sunday, a system which always leads to trauma. The less aware we are of how we experience our life and how we are impacted by that, the greater our pain. Being unable to love our enemies and pray for those who harass us is a clue that we have not yet dealt with something that has wounded us. All of this complicates and buries our difficult assignments of love and inclusion. And unless we learn how to love and include ourselves, we cannot offer that gift to others. Coming face to face with the wounds that we carry is also referred to as renewing our minds in our scriptures. There's more than one way to move away from the current world system, which ends in trauma, and align ourselves with the values of the kingdom of God to find fulfillment. But we'll look at one of them this morning. When you pray, go to your room, shut the door, and pray to God who is in the secret place. What happens when you close a door? If you're inside, you are keeping something out and something in. It is putting distance, a barrier between yourself and something or someone else. Closed doors can mean protection, providing refuge, a place to regroup and recover. Prayer has very many faces. It's not just what we do here on a Sunday morning. It's not just what you do at home when you pray for people who you know are in need. Prayer happens anywhere and in all kinds of different ways. From this verse, I understand prayer to be an act of separation for the purpose of solitude and connection, listening in relationship. This example of prayer, not all of them are, but this one is quiet, focusing on one single thing at a time. Prayer can be like turning off the lights so we are not so distracted. Prayer can be slowing down our breathing, noticing what is happening in our bodies. There are practical ways to come into a space in which our minds are renewed, our perspectives transformed, our trauma embraced by a loving presence, and our fears and our anxieties soothed. A place where the sing a song composed just for you, as Rhonda so aptly put it a few weeks ago. This type of spiritual practice, repeated regularly over time, will have a profound impact on us. I can't explain it. I don't understand it. It's a mystery. It's a reality that many people have experienced and spoken about. I have experienced it too. What can come out of this type of regular practice is that we let go of hatred, of anger, of blaming others. Harboring hatred and anger and blame stifles the amount of love we have to share with others. Closing the door, spending time alone, allowing God into this space can also result in connecting with ourselves in a way that is not possible when we're rushing all over the place in hypervigilant mode. Our nervous systems begin to settle down. Our heart rate slows. Our mind becomes more alert and creative and hopeful. Even the most mundane and unpleasant experiences can become places of prayer. Those of you who have ever experienced and been required to do weeks, even months, some people even years of physical therapy numerous times a day will attest to how tedious and painful and time-consuming it is. One day this past week, I must have been agitated about something as I was sitting there poised to start this 45-minute process of exercising my fingers and my hand. And I kept talking about whatever it was. I don't recall anymore what it was. And then Rod said, just turn out the light so you can focus on your therapy. In retrospect, one moment. It wasn't completely dark, you understand. It was just dusk, and the room was suddenly calm, peaceful, a different quality than when I had been agitated. Now, medical practitioners and others who are aware of how the body works will tell you that going through the motion of an exercise is much less effective if your mind isn't on that exercise. In other words, I could watch a 45-minute YouTube video as I'm exercising my hand, and it would be completely different than if I can sit peacefully, consciously relax my body, breathe deeply and evenly, and focus on that movement of each joint individually and each part of my hand. I think you can imagine which is more effective. This is a type of prayer. The same is true for time spent behind closed doors in an attitude of solitude. We can bring whatever it is to the table. The persons or the people whom we find abhorrent, these enemies, these people who harass us. We can bring our anxieties, our disappointment, our agony for what our family of origin did not provide for us, the hopes that we had that have been dashed or at least not been realized. This can be spoken. It can remain unspoken. Over time, the effect will be the same. Profound change. A deepening connection with the divine. An understanding that we can sometimes articulate and sometimes not. If over the course of the past minutes you've identified a difficult assignment, a person you feel has harassed you, a wound that you cannot seem to be free of, I invite you to a regular practice of closing the door, being still, shutting out distractions and threats and guilt, and simply putting it all out on the table. You may even choose an object that you physically place on the table to represent that. You'll find, as Father Richard Rohr says, all is included and nothing wasted or hated. When we begin to grasp that, we will notice a spark of hope, which grows the more we enter into this practice. In fact, I came to realize that a subtitle for this sermon could have been, All Prayers Can Lead to Hope. This past times, journalism is an act of hope. I would also say closing the door, entering into the quiet place to be our difficult people, our difficult assignments to the table in relationship with God is an act of hope. May we find it to be so.